Good afternoon and welcome to the June 23rd, 2021 City Council work session. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. And thank you again for taking time out of the middle of your day to join us in this discussion, in this meeting. And with that, I am going to turn it over to the city manager for the first work session item on operations.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm joined today by Jason Dedrick, who's been doing a lot of work on this. And so today we'll be presenting our first work session on this topic. I don't think Councilor Evans is here yet, but hopefully he'll be able to jump on soon. So I'll turn it over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us going on this presentation. Can you confirm what you're seeing in terms of screen share right now?
We are seeing the presenter mode. So we can have Julie open the slide if you'd like. Can you start slideshow?
Yeah, let's do that. Julie, if you can.
Okay.
That's great. My apologies. While Julie's going, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Jason Dedrick. I am a policy analyst in the city manager's office. Excited to be here for your first conversation on this very important topic. We've been doing a lot of research, really to just give you a place to start from in this important conversation. So while we are certainly not experts on reparations work, what we're going to do today is give you a little background on the topic just as a way to frame your discussion. So go ahead, Julie. So in terms of what we're going to talk about, I'll give you just a bit of background on reparations and what that means when we say that word. I'll talk to you a little bit about federal and state efforts that are currently occurring around this topic, and then really spend the bulk of the time providing you with some of the research that we've learned in conversation with other cities, and then synthesizing that into what we're calling better practices and lessons learned. And I'll talk a little bit more about the better practices part later, but essentially there is no one best practice and it needs to fit our community should we choose to pursue this important discussion. So we'll wrap up with that, and then hopefully that'll give you a good place to start your conversation. So when we talk about reparations, and you can go ahead and advance that, Julie, it starts as really, it's a complex word with a lot of different interpretations. And I think one of the cleanest places to start is simply with the Oxford English Dictionary definition of reparations, which is the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. And this term has come to have certain legal connotations. And as more discussion has occurred around our country with reparations in recent years, really what has evolved is moving beyond the terms helping and moving beyond the terms paying money and more into what really would be better termed as reparative justice. And this really gets to the idea of what is the accountability involved with the actions that an entity is taking, and how do those actions actually repair the harm. And certainly paying money per the OED description is one way to potentially repair that harm, but there may be many other ways. So the term I'm going to use going forward in this presentation is reparative justice. When a community specifically uses the term reparations, I will use that. However, I think that it's important to frame this more broadly, at least here at the start, as reparative justice. And so when we think about, and go ahead and advance, when we think about our local context here and starting here with our community, it's important to note our history, our local context, and noting that individuals in our community over the history of Eugene have been forcibly removed from lands. So our indigenous populations that were here prior to settlement and that are still here today were forcibly removed from lands, as were Black individuals, Black families in our community, whether that be specifically the Ferry Street Village on the north side of the Willamette River, or maybe in other parts of the community, and they were forcibly removed from those lands. And in addition to that, the history that Oregon has with white supremacy and other discriminatory practices, and that history is part of the fabric of Eugene. And so seeding this conversation in that local context is incredibly important. And as we'll learn from other cities, it can be the difference between these efforts working well and working not so well. And finally, while naming, as you can see there, we have begun a recognition process through things like naming. It's important to note when we think about reparative justice, it's just one part of that. And there's a lot more that can be involved with what it means to repair harm. And naming can be one piece of that, but there are so many other things that can be as well. Go ahead, Julie. So quick context on federal and state efforts. So at the federal level, HR 40, House Resolution 40, this has been a piece of legislation that has been introduced for multiple sessions in Congress over the years. And this legislation specifically moves to create a reparations commission at the federal level. And so this legislation is just now, I think for the first time, moving out of committee and is getting some additional recognition at the federal level. At the state level, our recent session just a few weeks ago, they passed Joint Memorial 4, which urges federal action specifically referring to HR 40. And so there are other states, other communities that are also pointing back at HR 40 and encouraging action there. Go ahead, Julie. So what we'll spend the bulk of our time here on from here forward is talking a little bit about what's happening in other cities. So it's a relatively small but growing list. When we think about all the different cities and counties across the country, it's still a relatively small list, but it is growing and it is growing fast. Simply in the time that I've been doing this research over the last 4 to 5 weeks, additional cities have come on board. So attachment A has the list of some of those cities and summarizes some of that research, but it is by no means comprehensive of everything that's out there, but it gives you a good picture of what's out there. What you'll note from attachment A is the varying approaches that are out there. And I'll talk through highlighting a few cities to try to draw attention to the different ways some cities are choosing to do this work. Some cities are also beginning to organize together around reparations. And I'll finish up with a bit of information on that. And then there are some larger cities that we typically look to across our country for leadership as the population centers. These cities are moving slower than other cities, in part due to their size and sort of just what it takes to move a conversation about reparative justice. But New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Chicago have all recently formed commissions that are specifically studying reparations or reparative justice. They are relatively early on in those efforts, but they have formed those commissions to start that work. So the first city that we'll talk about, and go ahead and advance, is Evanston, Illinois. They are really the first city recently that has made direct payments under the umbrella of reparations. And so they're getting a lot of attention for that work. What's notable about Evanston is that this work didn't magically happen. While some communities began their work on reparative justice following the murder of George Floyd, other communities that seem to be sort of already down the road of talking about reparative justice began that work well before last year. So Evanston began with an Equity and Empowerment Commission in 2018 that was specifically geared around looking at historic injustice in the community, particularly around housing discrimination towards the Black population in Evanston. That commission made some recommendations, then their council passed a resolution specifically directing the city to establish a reparations fund and a reparations subcommittee. That work began in 2019. Their work with community involvement through that subcommittee then last year made that allocation of $10 million, the first $10 million of receipts from their local marijuana tax directed into that reparations fund. And then just this year, the first allocations out of those funds are occurring, $400,000 going specifically to what they're calling a restorative housing program, which will be direct payments to Black individuals seeking housing in the community. Notable that those payments aren't going directly to individuals, they will actually be going to lenders, and that is in part to avoid the tax consequences of a direct payment to individuals. So much more will come out of Evanston as they choose to allocate more of those funds. But what's interesting and notable here is that they are tying their reparations payments directly to the local context and the local history in terms of housing discrimination. And that's where they're starting their work. So the next city that we're going to talk about is Providence, Rhode Island. They are also one of the early cities looking at reparative justice. They began their process last year as part of an executive order. That executive order specifically determined a three-phase process that they wanted to move through, starting with what they're calling a truth phase. And this was to do a comprehensive historical look at discrimination and justice in the state of Rhode Island. Providence is primarily most of Rhode Island. It's a small state, it's a big city. So their state historical society actually commissioned that report and really did that deep dive on the history in the community. And then taking the results of that report and turning outward to the community and really moving into a reconciliation phase, which was to make sure the community was aware of this report, having discussions about it, and really those discussions helping informing what will come next. And so they are currently in that reconciliation phase right now. They are waiting to determine what any other reparative justice work may be or direct reparation payments, because they want it to be a product of that reconciliation phase. So that is still yet to be determined. And notable about Providence is they're acknowledging their history of lands removed from indigenous peoples. And so that is an explicit part of their reparative justice work right now. Whereas most of the other communities that we'll talk about are primarily dealing with Black individuals. Moving on to the next city, which is Asheville, North Carolina, also another city that has gotten a lot of attention for being out on the forefront of this work. Their work started last year with a council resolution acknowledging harm. They also then began a three-phase process, somewhat similar to Providence, an information and truth-telling phase, as they're calling it, then the formation of a reparations commission, and then implementation of whatever that commission suggests. They took the step right away with their resolution of creating a reparations fund and allocating dollars to that. That was coming directly out of their general fund. And they are specifically directing some early portions of that fund towards home ownership programs and business and career opportunities. They're looking at economic inequality as it relates to race in Asheville and specifically directing their efforts there. One other notable piece about Asheville is that they recently just disposed of a couple of properties that were acquired through urban renewal and back in the 60s, and the acknowledgement that those lands were actually previously owned by Black individuals and so then acquired by the city through urban development. And so they're taking the proceeds from those funds and actually directing them back into the reparations fund. So again, tying their funding back into the local context, local history. The next city that we will talk about is Athens, Georgia, a bit of a parallel here with Eugene. So their work began with the results of a report in 2020, which was to examine the city's role in the removal of a Black community called Linentown, which was specifically removed in the 60s to construct campus housing for the University of Georgia. And so this work recognized both the city, the county, and the university's role in that removal. Upon receipt of that report, the council passed a resolution acknowledging their role and the harm that was done, and then also creating a Justice and Memory Committee. That committee will move forward on developing budget and other recommendations around reparative justice. The next city that we'll talk about is Oakland, California, taking a very different angle on this work. This work was launched at the executive level by the mayor, specifically to address systemic racism and income inequality. And so their goal is to provide 600 randomly selected lower income BIPOC families with $500 in monthly income for 18 months. And so similar to other cities, they are weaving concepts of universal basic income or UBI into their effort to try to address those income inequality issues. And the city said very upfront, said, we are not going to be able to fund this through our funding. So we are going to look to local philanthropy to raise those funds for this work. And so they've received $7 million to date for those efforts. The next city that we will talk about, actually that's the last city that we'll talk about, but we'll talk about some other cities that are pulling together in this work. So literally just last week on Friday, a new organization was announced, or a new alliance called the Mayors Organization, Mayors Organized for Reparations and Equity, or MORE. And so this was launched last week, led by Los Angeles Mayor Garcetti. And there are 11 cities that are part of this initial group. They are inviting other cities to join this effort. Member cities will agree to their commitment to support HR 40 at the federal level, that their city will form a reparations commission, and that the city will develop and implement reparations programs and payments. So they are seeking other cities to join that effort. So when we look at all of this research and sort of what other communities are doing, there are some different pathways that can be chosen for this work. One of these is the idea of local or federal action. So I didn't speak specifically to this, but you'll see in attachment A, several communities acknowledged harm, said that reparative justice is needed and that direct reparations payments may be needed, but they don't feel their city or city government is the place to do it. And so they passed resolutions saying, federal government, we are advocating to you, or we are instructing our legislators to support federal action. So some communities are choosing that. Others, as we talked about, are taking local action. Some are choosing to do both. Another pathway or choice here is whether or not to look at direct payments in the form of reparations payments, or to be looking at rather than doing direct payments, looking at programs and policies at the municipal level that may be continuing sort of historic injustice in some way or discrimination in some way. And of course, many cities are choosing to do both. But it is a choice that can be made, recognizing that different programs might have different approaches may have a better fit for the community or for where the community is in the conversation. And then finally, another pathway is to start small or to be bold, and neither are better or worse. I will say that some of the communities that came out bold and said, we are going to pay reparations, we are going to allocate money, have been slowed down a bit because that very large expectation was made and the community and the process weren't quite ready to fulfill that. And so things haven't moved as quickly, and there's been some pushback on the process. So some have decided to start small with studies and commissions, others have chosen more of a bold kind of proclamation. And then finally, when we look at themes and again, better practices, this gets to the idea that there is no best way. Sometimes when we're talking about things at the municipal level, it's great to look at another city and say, yes, we love the way they do that. Let's do that here. In my research, I would suggest that what I'm finding and what we're finding through our work is that the more tailored an approach is to the local context and the history of the community and where the community conversation is, the better chance there is for success. So really seeding that discussion in the local context, the local history. Also having realistic timelines and expectations. So I just talked about that a minute ago. Those communities that have set unrealistic timelines have gotten pushback, and there has been some disgruntlement. And really it's about understanding what's possible with where your community is. Now that said, there are communities, Rochester, New York is a great example, where they have set some very aggressive timelines to keep the work going so that it doesn't languish. So there's a balance to be had there. We talked about history and truth telling. Some communities, this has been part of their DNA. They have been having these discussions for many, many years. Some have not. And so depending on where a community is in that discussion, will dictate how much of that history and truth telling and community listening may really need to happen to move forward on the process in a good way. We talked about reconciliation and reparative justice. That's very similar to the history and the truth telling. The communities that seem to be moving faster and more effectively with this work are taking a more broader reparative justice look to say, this is more than just about making payments. This is about a broader sense of repairing harm that may have been done. As you heard from many of the cities, they are taking a committee or commission structure. Oftentimes these are appointed by council, made up of community members, and really inviting the community into the work and having them do that work of researching what's happening elsewhere, understanding the community, making recommendations that then a council can consider. And then finally, a holistic approach seems to be a better practice. communities that are looking at this across a broad spectrum of programs and policies at the municipal level that may need to be examined or addressed for the kinds of repair or harm that may be necessary. Of course, direct payments are an important part of that consideration, but even within that, there can be a broader approach on how you want to target those funds. So some communities are doing that related to housing. Some of them are doing it related to business support. Some are doing it in a way that supports educational goals or getting education for individuals. So even within payments, there's a holistic approach that's out there. And then of course, process came through as a theme. Communities that have put together a very deliberate process, maybe with phases, that don't predetermine what the outcome might be, seem to be moving a little better and with more community support around the work. So I believe that was my last slide. Yes. So the goal of this was really just to set you up for your discussion for this, for your first kind of opportunity to have this discussion and to decide if this is something you want to pursue more work on. We titled this Reparations Part 1, knowing that you don't have a lot of time today. There may be more questions, more things that you want staff to research, and that's what we'll be listening for in your discussion. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jason. I found both the AIS and your presentation very, very interesting. And I know I have some questions about how we move forward, but I can see that there are a couple of counselors already in the queue. So I will turn it over to Mike and then Alan and then Claire and then Jennifer.
Mayor, I'd love to go first, but I noticed that Councilor Evans is on the Zoom meeting now, and I know that he brought this forward initially, and I would defer and go second if he would like to speak first.
Greg, are you interested in that invitation?
Well,
Mike, why don't you just proceed, and Greg will raise his hand when he's ready.
Sure. Jason, thank you very much for the presentation. My first question to you, did you by any chance, have you or has any staff member begun the process of looking at the history of ordinances in Eugene that are particularly targeted to issues of race?
I did not do any of that work as part of this research. I know that we did do a little bit of historical work as part of the belonging training that we're currently doing for staff. I don't think it extends as deeply as looking back at city ordinances.
I like the idea of keeping this local. The city of Eugene had laws on its books for years that were racist and wrong. And our job, in my opinion, is to manage the city. And if we're going to talk about restorative justice, I personally would like to see us target being restorative to the things the city of Eugene did that were wrong. And one of those, at least that I have known about for a long time, is around housing. Greg and I have been talking about this for a while. I've had an idea for a while that that revolves around a restorative justice program to deal with housing. In the greatest time of middle-class expansion happened after World War II. The GI Bill wasn't just about education, it was the forerunner of VA loans, which are 0% down home loans. And after World War II, by 1948, 16 million men and women served in World War II, and 1 million of them were Black. But almost none of them used their loans to buy, their capacity for loans to buy homes, because the rules and the laws in those cities didn't allow them to. And Eugene was one of those places. In New York and New Jersey, for example, in 1948, they'd already had 67,000 people buy homes using the GI Bill, and less than 100 of them were Black. I have an idea that the city should consider the idea of creating a loan program, much like a VA loan, that guarantees a loan and allows lenders to create that 0 down home loan for any person of color whose family lived in Eugene and can show that during the time that we had laws that said you can't buy a house here or you can't live here, and give those families the chance to have the kind of multi-generational income that comes with home ownership in a way that would make it very easy for them to do so. Now, there are a lot of details to flush out with that, but the idea of a VA loan is that the federal government guarantees that, and there's a fee associated with it that goes and is pooled to administer that program. But then it only pays out if and when there's a failure. Until then, it's a simple guarantee that allows the risk to go away and the lenders to be able to do a home loan at 0% down. So I'd like to talk in more detail about those concepts too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan, and then Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is indeed an important conversation about our history and about pursuing restorative justice. I like the idea of expanding this to the BIPOC community, as many other communities have done. There's lots of wrongs to atone for with Native Americans, with Japanese Americans, women, and others that have been discriminated. And given all that list, I don't think there's a one size fits all for what we end up doing for different groups. I thought it was interesting in the survey, thanks for all that work you guys have done, Jason and others, that only 1 of 13 had direct payments. 5 specifically said they're not going to do direct payments, including Portland. 7 still to be determined out of 13. But I really liked Providence, Rhode Island's approach, where the truth, reconciliation, and reparations, that 3-part process makes a whole lot of sense to me. I think that's what the staff was suggesting maybe as well. Under the truth part, a commission or a council ad hoc committee to investigate, report, educate, and including maybe potentially an acknowledgement or an apology, and then also work on recommendations. So a commission or an ad hoc committee makes a lot of sense to me. On the reconciliation part, that's the community conversation about how do we change laws and practices, and atoning for our previous sins, or implementing new laws and practices and new programs that like Rochester and Durham had suggested. On the reparations part, I'm less interested in direct payments and more interested in other types of reparations, with an emphasis on helping current residents of Eugene that have experienced discrimination and inequity and injustice. As Amherst said, what's the best way to promote equity and justice now? And Evanston talked about housing and land use with home repairs, down payments. The IRS rule was an interesting twist on this. Who gets the payments? That was fascinating. I don't think we want to give the IRS a third of whatever we come up with. Asheville talked about increasing home ownership and business and career opportunities. In New York City, was talking about restorative justice measures. I like the idea of loans for home ownership or helping people rent, business assistance for minority and women-owned businesses. We already have some work that we've been doing in that area, so I think there's more to be done there. So, but I like the Providence three-stage approach. I mean, that made a lot of sense to me.
Okay, Claire, then Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jason, for this good work. This is a really important topic, and I'm really grateful to Councilor Evans for bringing forward the work session. It seems to me there's many ways we could go. There are many ways we could, if we decide to choose to make some kind of reparations. And I think really starting at the beginning and having a robust truth and reconciliation process first, without having a predetermined list of things that we think we're going to do on the end of it, seems to me, as staff noted, creating the most productive processes. I'm astonished at the number of people in the city, including at one point a city council I was serving with, who had no idea about the historical record regarding treatment of African Americans or even indigenous peoples. And we're talking not ancient history, we're talking modern history, right? So the 1940s and 50s and 60s, and then also going back to the early days of this city. So I think surfacing that and having a really robust community engagement to surface that, and so that people understand why we're even considering reparations. It's not some harebrained, liberal, woolly-headed idea, right? It's founded in the facts of what happened here in this town. So that's what I'd be really interested in seeing. And I appreciate the ideas that Councilor Clark mentioned. I think those are absolutely top-notch ideas, but I would like us to start with that truth and reconciliation and then lead into what are the city-specific things that happen? What are things that the general community supported or the business community promoted, right? There are many actors. There's the University of Oregon. So I'm really excited that we're starting on this conversation. I think it's got a lot of potential. And then in addition to what Councilor Zelenka mentioned, there were also Chinese immigrants who were the main workforce that built the railroad and then were subject to racist exclusion laws as a means of ensuring that they couldn't establish families here or bring their wives over or their children, and then were driven out of the country, being scapegoated by white people. So, you know, there's a lot that went on that I think each should have a place in consideration. And then just a follow-up question for staff. You mentioned this, you know, there are cities organizing around that. And I'm wondering if we're getting to a place where there's enough activity to support some kind of coordinating organization or best practices organization that might even include conferences or that kind of thing where people could go and learn more about how to do this work. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, and then Randy.
Thank you. So first I had a question for Jason. Thank you so much for this report. You mentioned the MORE, and I didn't write down what it stood for Mayor, but the process where the 11 cities are coming together. And I'm wondering if that is just something you sign up for, or if it is designed to share ideas and feedback from each other and kind of work together.
They are brand new, so I think they're trying to get their feet under them in terms of what they're going to do. Right now, they are oriented around, I think, building a critical mass of other communities. So they are specifically making that call for communities to make those 3 commitments and join them. Staff can certainly reach out to them and find out, are they going to begin to organize in some way where they're sharing best practices, or where non-member communities of that organization can benefit from some of their work. So we can definitely look more into that process. It is brand new, but I think, you know, we could certainly inquire.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. I think anytime that we can, you know, get insight from other communities or work together and share ideas, it's always beneficial. And we've benefited from that, obviously, in the past and other things. So that would be great to get some more information back. I agree with my colleagues that I really like the idea of first step being talking about our own history in a more honest and open way in our community. I agree with Claire that I often meet people who are just ignorant of our own history or resistant to a different narrative than the one they may have learned in elementary school. So having that first step of just all understanding where we have been, I think would be very helpful. And then I'd really be interested in a process that is community-led. I like Councilor Clark's idea. I like the idea of focusing on housing, but I'm not a person who is coming from that background. You know, my family members were not enslaved persons. I don't have that background. And so I want to make sure that the choices we're making are coming from that community and with their perspective and doing it with them, not to them, because that's kind of the history we've already come from. So if we can build that into the process, and I'm assuming when we come back, it would be nice if we can have some direction on that, what that process might look like like once we get through the truth. Gosh, this is I'm sorry, this is new and a lot of my brain is going a little faster than my mouth. I'm going to listen to other people and keep thinking.
Mayor, I'm here, but I'm having technical difficulties.
Council,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, and
Okay.
no video, but I'm happy to put you. I've got Randy, and then I put you in the queue for Red.
I'm good. I'm good for the moment, Mayor. I want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. All right, Randy, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I would be fine with Councilor Evans going in front of me if he would prefer, or I can go ahead and go now.
Go ahead, Randy. Go ahead now, because I'm trying to get a stable connection.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. I agree with a lot of what I've heard. I agree with Councilor Syret and what Councilor Ye was saying about, more of the truth and reconciliation process. So we really understand what happened. I also concur with Councilor Clark that we should be focusing on local issues since we are local government. I also am intrigued by some of the solutions that he represented. I also agree with Councilor Zelenka that we need to, at some point, look at the larger BIPOC community. And going back to Councilor Ye, I believe in community involvement in this, but I would actually add, I think it would be helpful not to only focus on the BIPOC community, but a broader community group that, part of this is building understanding and building support for this to be successful and some of the past issues. And I think to do that, we need to be involving more than just the people that were affected by it. I also like anything that we do to be directed more towards multi-generational rather than just picking a generation out and saying, we're going to help this group when it's a larger, like I said, multi-generational harm that's been done in the community. So that'll be something I'll be interested in seeing how we work through that piece. And I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around the whole concept. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, Jason, thank you for the presentation. For me personally, it's always helpful when we're doing comparisons with other cities to have the population of those cities included. It just helps me kind of align things because sometimes it's easier for smaller or larger communities, depending what the issue is. It just saves me having to look it up because I will. So that's my first 2 bits. Thank you.
Okay, I have Emily, but Greg, do you want to step in yet or do you want to wait for Emily? All right, Emily, I'm just going to let you go ahead and then we'll turn to Greg.
Thank you. I don't have much to add, but I want to be on the record as agreeing with my colleagues. Thank you, Jason. That was an excellent report. It really covered a lot of ground, a lot of cities. Thank you. I agree that starting with our local history and what happened here is really important, and also that we need outreach for education because people don't understand what happened. So that's critical. Also that the community, once educated, directs the efforts. It does come from the community through us. And I'm interested in especially reparations, help, racial, what is it? No, our word. Anyway, the reparations, justice, reparative justice. Sorry about that. I think a lot of what's missing from these experiences for people, it was the opportunity to get housing and land. So I like the idea of making some of that up with supporting housing. And also I think the not being able to get the same kind of education opportunities, which lead to business opportunities, which lead to money, which lead to a lot of our problems when you don't have some. So housing and business would I think, help all of us. Thank you.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah. I don't want to disconnect audio.
We can hear you and see you, Councilor Evans.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, you may not be able to see me, but you can hear me. And you may have already, some of you may have already touched on these points in your conversation earlier. I apologize. I had to run late. I just couldn't get my computer to cooperate with me. So, you know, one of the reasons why I put this issue forward was because of the conversations that are going on nationally now about reparations. They didn't just start yesterday, but they've accelerated over the last 10 years. And so a lot of people don't know that or don't know that campaign. You know, what I'm looking for is something that is going to be reasonable. It is going to reflect the values of the community. You know, I'm looking for a way for us to kind of just begin to move forward from a not so distant past where there were sundown laws here. There were various places where it wasn't said, but it was said, you can't live here or you can't live there. You had those racial covenants with a lot of homes here. So, you know, the idea was to both legally, physically, and everything else, keep us out of the community. And it goes back to one of my uncles told me when I was like a teenager, and he said, Greg, this is what you need to know about white people. I said, okay. So he said, 1, they don't want to live next to us. 2, they don't want to have their kids go to school with our kids. 3, they don't want to work next to us. And the 4th thing is they don't want our kids marrying your kids. So, you know, it goes back to that kind of framework and that mindset that, you know, we're not welcome. That's the message that's sent. And it's sent quite often. It's still sent in this community.
Thank you. I know Mike has a second round, but I just wanted to jump in here with a couple of thoughts. And first is that I really agree with what everyone is saying about sort of go slow to go fast, go through the truth telling reconciliation process before we jump to conclusions about what the right pathway is. There are a lot of people involved, and we've learned a lot about community engagement in the work that's happened in 2020 and early 2021. And we really should take advantage of the lessons that we've learned about that engagement and do more, do better. I do want to say that last summer and early conversations with our some of our local activists connected with American descendants of slavery, that there was a very specific ask around Black descendants of slavery in this community, which is a distinctive history that is distinctive from the experience of Indigenous people and distinctive from the experience of immigrants. And so I guess I would just, you know, as we talk about this, I would just urge us as a city to recognize those different stories and the different opportunities we have, that our opportunity to have a kind of government to government relationships with tribes here is very different from our relationship with American descendants of slavery, and also quite different from the immigrant history. And so wanting to make sure we're very clear about that, because it is distinctive, and the specific focus and hardships of each group needs, I think, a targeted response. And the other thing I just want to say is that I'm quite interested in the mayor's organized reparations. I'd be very interested in finding out more about that. So this if the council is interested and the city decides that we're ready to commit to those 3 steps, I think that would be always beneficial for us to be sort of on that national landscape on an issue like this that's of national significance. So with that said, I will turn it over to Mike and Claire for second rounds.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that in the last year, there have been some people speaking at public forum who directed some comments towards me. And the reason that I spoke and used my first round to talk about a specific idea I had was to illustrate my seriousness with this and how important it is to me that we do something meaningful for people locally, and that I've been thinking about this for quite a while. But that said, I agree entirely with Claire and with Councilor Ye, with Jennifer, that on 2 fronts. One, the educational component of making sure everybody in the community gets access to the information that they may not already have about what this community has done in the past specifically is an important component of this. And number 2, then, as Jennifer mentioned, I don't want to seek a solution based on what I think, but so much as what those communities have experienced and what they value. So I am in agreement with the rest of the council about process, Jason, that having that idea of a commission of some kind of work that we're doing up front to talk about our own history in very, very real terms is important for everybody to be on the same page and understand. And I think it will lead to better solutions. And specifically, I want to hear from people in those communities, as Jennifer mentioned, on what would be most meaningful to them. So I like my idea, but I'm sure there will be others. So thanks.
Thank you. And Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, I just really want to appreciate what you just said about reminding us that we need to honor and recognize the distinctive character and nature of each people's history, whether that's descendants of folks who were enslaved, or indigenous folks, or immigrants. I think would be a terrible mistake to somehow blend those all together into one thing, the way we have this acronym, which we use, which I think is a valid use of an acronym, but that should not be how our approach to this process is handled. And then I just wanted to speak to what Councilor Groves said in terms of how he interpreted what Councilor Ye was saying. I do not believe Councilor Ye was suggesting that only BIPOC community members be engaged in the process. I believe she was saying they should be the leaders in terms of helping to determine what we might do to advance restorative justice, rather than this council deciding we know it's best and we're gonna do something. So I believe that's what she was trying to convey. Thanks.
Councilor Ye, Jennifer.
Yeah, Jason, I had a last question really quick. I'm wondering if when you were looking at these communities that started with a truth phase, did they focus on certain communities, or did they cast a broad net of looking at different histories of different groups, like Councilor Surratt was talking about earlier?
It's a good question, and there was a lot of variability. Some in their truth telling did specifically choose one population in particular, often tend to be Black population, Black community, given the certain context or history of that community. There certainly, though, are others. Providence, I think, is probably the best example that didn't really put any bounds on what that history process was going to be like. Their direction to the State Historical Society was tell the whole history, be as broad as possible. We're not asking about a certain entity. So, I think, again, like a lot of what what we presented and what you talked about, it has tended to depend on the local context and how that wants to be framed. There has been resistance in communities that only chose a very narrow path, that others have felt that their stories were not reflected. So you've already discussed that as being a possible thing that you want to avoid. So that has happened in a couple communities that didn't go broad enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of work done in recent years to bring to light certain communities' histories but I'm sure this is obvious, when a group is underrepresented and excluded from histories, it takes a lot of effort to then uncover those histories, which means the broader the broader scope that we choose, the longer and longer that process would obviously take. And it's probably also obvious that expecting community members to uncover these histories is unrealistic unless you are, finding community members who have the skills and the background to be able to do that very difficult research. So that's just something we should keep in mind when we're trying to figure out what a realistic timeline and expectations for getting this work done are. This is not something where they can just go down to the library and figure out the histories of these groups that have been displaced in an afternoon, right? This is a long process.
Okay, thank you. And I'm hoping that conversation gave you all staff enough to chew on for us before the next round, and appreciate that. And with that, I think we are ready to go on to our, thank you very much, Jason, for the presentation. I think we're ready to go on to our second item, which is an update on the outreach for the homeless and shelter sites. So I'm going to turn that over to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to just ask Christy Hammett and Matt Rodriguez are here to do that presentation. They can just kick that off. Or whoever's kicking it off.
I'm kicking it off, Sarah. Sorry, I was having trouble getting my camera to work and I realized I had another camera on from another system. So we're good to go. Thanks for having us here today. I'm joined at our virtual table with Matt Rodriguez and Peter Savan. Matt's our interim public works director and Peter is a policy analyst in the city manager's office, but very focused on homeless related work. Since we last met with you on May 19th, our team has had a laser focus on really working to find and assess sites. You might recall that at our May 19th session, we identified a narrower list of sites that we were working on. And since that time, there's been additional information released around those site locations and the work that's happening. We're taking a 4-phased approach to assessing the sites, which has been really great. So that first one was the result of what you saw initially and the sites that were assessed. And we've since moved into phase 2. And our presentation today will primarily focus on the work that's happened since May 19th, which wasn't that long ago, and a lot has been done. We've been gathering a lot of input. For the most part, that input has been positive and supportive of the establishments of sites, but there are some very important concerns that have been raised around specific sites that we're continuing to address. As you know, we've had a lot of success with Nightingale, rest stops, microsites, and we really want to build on that success with the establishment of these safe sites. The effort to establish these safe sites has really been a group effort, a lot of partnerships, a lot of coordination. And I just want to recognize some of the folks that we've been working really closely with. First and foremost is our partners at Lane County. We've been working with them on a weekly basis, not only on the Technical Assistance Collaborative and how this work connects to that, but also the establishment of outreach teams and working with providers, and their support has been critical throughout the process. Next, just want to mention, you may have heard that the LTD board approved for the director at LTD to work with the city to establish lease agreements on 2 properties that they're not using at this time. We'll talk a little bit more about those properties later on, but I have never seen a presentations where people were voting to support something and they used the word enthusiastically support. And I was really excited to hear that they were really happy to be part of the solution, and we're glad to have their help. Next, I'd like to recognize the work that we're doing with the Chamber. Brittany Cook-Warner and Nicole Desch have been in numerous meetings with us. whether they're on site with businesses or in our team meetings, looking at the lands that we're considering and bringing new ideas to the table. Many of the chamber businesses have been engaged, again, also bringing land options and their concerns and helping to be collaborative and working on solving some of the problems that many of them are experiencing. So all of that has been really good. But before we move on to the next slide, I just want to say that we continue to have a lot of focus related to the work that's happening with making sure things are safe from a public health standpoint, from addressing illegal camping issues, and making sure that we're following up quickly in a timely way on criminal activity that's happening. There are a lot of different calls for services around some of the unsanctioned areas, and we are going to continue to focus on that work. Our staff team is small but mighty and doing a great job responding as quickly and prioritizing the work. And they're also supporting the temporary camps every day, doing cleanup. And I just want to give a shout out to them and the work that they're doing. There are heroes behind the scenes that are really keeping things moving, and I appreciate them very much. So next slide, please. So the next slide is just a reminder again that this is part of the overall systems approach that we're working within as it relates to the housing implementation pipeline. A critical step in establishing these will link to these other options that will come forward. Next slide, please. In the past, the last couple of work sessions that we've had with you, we've gone into quite a bit of detail around the current conditions. Today, with the time limitations we have, we'll just give a couple of quick updates. The May 2021 homeless by name list is hovering around the same as it has been for the last several months, a little bit higher. We're expecting that census of unhoused individuals to perhaps go up. We normally experience an uptick in activity over the summer months. The two temporary camps, the one at Washington Jefferson and at 13th Avenue, remain at full capacity. And so staff are working really hard to make sure that they're doing everything they can to support those camps and the surrounding areas. Our Eugene Police Department has added some additional patrols on evenings and weekends to make sure that the area, the camps are safe and the surrounding areas are safe. And so we're really appreciative of that. And we're also working to add some new park hosts to assist on the weekends. And so that's all in progress. And I think that will be really positive. As we're looking for sites, we're also continuing to focus on the congregate shelter options coming back online. The two major resources for that are Dusk to Dawn and the Eugene Mission. We've heard that Dusk to Dawn has approximately 2 to 5 spaces on average per night that is available. And so we want to make sure that we're doing a better job of coordinating so our police and our outreach teams and camp park hosts have that information to help people access those services. And the Eugene Mission is still operating at their COVID capacity levels. And so we'll continue to keep an eye on that and see what might become available. And lastly, with respect to the camp, Peter will be reporting on some of the survey work that's done with the temporary urban camps that we're supporting right now, and also some of the car campers. Next slide, please. So the next portion of our presentation is really going to focus on the work that we've done around service models, coordination with our partners, the site review, and a little bit more detail about the sites that are moving forward, and the outreach efforts that have been in place. So I'll turn it over to Peter.
Thanks, Christy. Good afternoon, Mayor and councilors. Can I have the next slide, please? So as Christy mentioned, we've been engaged in a really intense planning process to get these safe sleep sites off the ground. That process has included City of Eugene staff from the CMO, Parks and Open Space, Public Works Maintenance, and EPD. It's included social service providers, homeless advocates, people experiencing homelessness, as well as staff from Lane County's Human Service Division. This diverse set of stakeholders have contributed their thinking towards site management and safety plans, prioritized amenities and services, policies, procedures, and behavior expectations, referral, intake, and service coordination. So really, it's been a model of cross-organizational collaboration as we try and launch these safe sleep sites. Can I have the next slide, please? I did want to draw your attention to some of the work we've been doing with folks who are currently living in Washington Jefferson Park, 13th and Chambers, and parked in vehicles primarily in West Eugene. A combination of City of Eugene staff and street outreach workers from POR, a local social service provider, engaged 273 individuals and invited them to participate in a survey to assess interest in relocating to a sanctioned safe sleep site. Of the 273 folks we talked with, 120 agreed to participate in that survey. And of those 120, 80% expressed an interest in relocating to a sanctioned safe sleep site. Their top priorities listed on the slide were secured storage, access to meal preparation, and on a bus line. I did want to mention the next three priorities for folks we spoke with. Those were access to services, pet accommodations, and participation in a community environment. I wanted to add those to make sure we understand that there are lots of folks who are currently living outside who want to engage in services, are looking to be part of a community where there's reciprocal accountability, both within the camp and amongst the surrounding neighborhood. And so that was, I just feel like that's important for us to bring to these public conversations. And then folks who declined to participate in the survey did so for a variety of reasons, many of the same reasons I have for not participating in surveys when I'm walking around the mall or approach. They were too busy, they were working on something, they weren't particularly interested. And there was also a fair number of folks who were skeptical regarding the city's intention. And I note this to say that as we deliver on our intentions, I would expect greater buy-in from folks who are living outside. I think the relationship is damaged, and if we demonstrate that we're providing safe places for people to be where they can get their basic needs met and have access to services, I think a lot more people than showed up in this survey would be eager to relocate into sanctioned safe sites. Can I have the next slide, please? So as a reminder, here are the locations staff brought forward as potential locations a couple of weeks ago. Matt will provide status updates regarding locations later in the presentation, but I share this now to provide some context for some of the community engagement work that has been happening since we shared this information. Next slide. Reagan Watchus and I have met with the neighborhood association chairs from the Whitaker Community Council, Active Bethel Citizens, Harlow Neighbors, and the River Road Community Organization. We also attended a River Road Community Organization meeting, as well as a Harlow Neighborhood Association meeting. The concerns were consistent across these conversations. People were looking for more equitable geographic distribution of our facilities serving people who are unhoused. They would like more support from EPD regarding unsanctioned camping. In the case of River Road, primarily proximity to schools and concern about siting a safe sleep site and the navigation center so close together were raised. And the Whitaker Community Council chair also reminded us of the disproportionate impact of his neighborhood related to the impacts of homelessness. Next slide, please. As Christy mentioned, we've also partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to connect with businesses near sites we have been exploring. Their concerns mirrored that of residents, with the additional layer of concern regarding how sites might interfere with business operations, given the challenges they are currently experiencing with unsanctioned camping. In general, while people consistently had concerns about siting safe, sleek sites near their businesses and residencies, those concerns stemmed largely from their experiences with unsanctioned camping and the geographic distribution of proposed sites. What we do know is for the sites the city has set up already, proximal neighbors have been very pleased with how they operate. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Thanks, Peter. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As Peter shared, this map in pink shows the locations that we had identified for further assessment as safe sleep sites. And I just want to remind you that we looked at over 300 private and public sites to get to this list. We continue to look for new opportunities for sites as they come up, and I'm happy to share that there are 2 more that are the blue stars that you see that we're currently assessing. One is a group of 2 ODOT properties that are between Bertelsen and Beltline. One property is 9 acres, the other is 19 or 18 acres. And we're talking with them to learn more about whether or not this is a good match, and also what the requirements for those properties would be if purchased. The second is a site at Bethel and Roosevelt that's owned by Squirrelland Villages. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Next slide. So what we want to focus on today are actually 3 locations that we feel are getting closer to bringing back to you for approval safe sleep sites. So the first is that new site I was talking about at Bethel and Roosevelt. The second is the LTD property at 2nd and Garfield, and the third is Chase Commons Park. Next slide. On this continuum of how we've worked through site assessment to implementation, these 3 properties that we're talking about are getting very close to phase 3. So everything that was shown in pink on that map has gone through phase 2 vetting, where we did an initial outreach and we continue to assess them. Some are still in that assessment phase. We need to learn more. We need to do more community outreach to really understand if they're a good fit. The 3 we're going to talk about are getting close to phase 3, where we're looking at the potential for lease agreements or specifics about how the sites might be used, and additional targeted outreach, especially if there are concerns around the areas that businesses and residents may have. Next slide. So the first is 2nd and Garfield, and Christy had shared that on the 16th, the LTD board directed their general manager to enter in negotiations with us to consider leasing this as a safe sleep site. We're super appreciative of that. This site's about 5 acres. It's near 2nd and Garfield, just south of the Ride Source area. And we are working with a potential social service provider to operate this location. While this could be tent sites or RV and car sites, right now we're thinking that this probably makes more sense as an RV and car site, and it could easily accommodate up to 60 vehicles, and maybe the potential for more depending on site layout. So next steps right now are we're talking with LTD about what a lease would look like. We're continuing to work with the service provider to identify and nail down exactly what their service would look like, and then of course additional communications with the surrounding property owners, businesses, and the neighborhood association. Next slide. The second is Chase Commons Park. So this is city property. There's actually been a community conversation about this as a site for a rest stop for some time. And that's really the way we'd like to approach this. We know there's more conversations to be had, especially with a couple of adjacent property owners, to make sure their concerns are addressed. But we would like to look potentially at approving this under the Safe Sleep Site ordinance, but really in a rest stop model. The reason that we would want to use Safe Sleep Sites for the approval is it would let us go to the full 20 immediately, and then we could really assess its performance and whether or not it would make sense to have an incremental growth at that site, or just to keep it at that same rest stop 20 model. So as I said, more conversations with adjacent businesses and neighbors and more work on our part to look at site planning. Next slide. So the third is Square One Village. So this is a site that they own. And if I understand correctly, the vision here is really to create something similar to Emerald Village, where you have permanent structures that are really serving an affordable housing purpose and have a sense of community within them. What we're excited about with Square One is really talking with them about the ability to take the model that they've built with Opportunity Village and kind of overlay it with a safe sleep site. So they'd be able to use their practices, their procedures, and the way that they build infrastructure around something like this and still meet the objectives we have with the work that we're doing. So this would be potentially up to 40 spaces. Likely, because we would try to move more towards their model, it would be something like a pallet shelter, maybe a Conestoga hut. Probably not tents, maybe to begin, but trying to transition into something that's a little more hardy. We have additional conversations with them to work through details and make sure this is the right fit, but we're excited about that opportunity and appreciative that they're willing to entertain it. So when we're thinking about that 4-phase model and getting towards step 3, one thing I want to highlight as we continue to refine these is that we're really targeting bringing back sites for you to approve at the next time they come to council in mid-July. And that right now we want to highlight that these are looking like really positive opportunities and let you know where we are in the process. So with that, I think we're ready for questions.
Thank you so much. This is such an encouraging presentation, and I'm really very excited and inspired by the progress you've made and how you're looking at those sites. So with that, I see that Randy has his hand raised. We'll start with Randy.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all three of you for the presentation. I know we're working on this. I have kind of a number of questions in random order here. The first one's pertaining to the parking ordinance changes that were voted in Monday night. These will only be as good as the enforcement. Is there any plan to increase the capacity of our enforcement arm of parking control?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Gross, for that question. Our unified command that's really working to coordinate.
Excuse me, my clock is still running, and I've got a number of questions I need to ask here. Thank you.
So our unified command that's working to coordinate the operations across the city services has been working with parking services, and they've really been trying to develop a plan to staff up. It's an awkward time because revenues were down very drastically for that team, but we recognize the need to have staffing to be able to assist with this work. So that's in progress.
Okay, good. I appreciate that that's in progress. Also, kind of looking at our numbers, it looks like we have open beds virtually every night in some of our existing inventory. And once we open the safe sites and create more space, do we have a strategy for trying to ensure that these spaces are filled?
I think the strategy, especially on the congregate shelters, will start immediately. As soon as that we're letting people know that are having conversations with people that are finding themselves unhoused right now, we want to give them that opportunity. So we're really trying to get better information out. The other thing is that our intent is that we know there's more need than what we're setting up. And so as we move towards transitioning to the safe sites, anything that's not full, we will just continue to give people that option to participate. As we've mentioned before, one of the things that we're really focused on is how we set up those sites so they're structured for success. And so that will be part of a consideration as we think about what is the appropriate site for different people to move towards.
Thank you. And when I look at a lot of these large RVs and trailers in West Eugene, I see what appears to be a large number of single occupancies. For example, one person occupying a 35 foot RV does not seem like a real efficient use of space when we have limited space. Is there any thought about that in a way to try and transition people? I like the tiny homes. I like the more semi-permanent structures. Is there anything along those lines that we're trying to look at a strategy, how to move people out of the dilapidated vehicles that they're in, that most of them don't run, into something that's more manageable and still provides shelter?
I think that's the intent as we start, working with the providers that are going to operate these sites and really trying to figure out what is the best path. And some of these folks maybe don't know that they're going to have different options that might be better than a vehicle or an RV that doesn't work. And so we'll continue to have those conversations kind of iterative as we move forward and figuring out ways to help people make those transitions.
Good.
But you bring up a good point. Thank you.
Well, it's just another thing I notice when I'm out there virtually every day seeing this and talking with people. I met with a large group this morning about this very thing. As we bring nonprofits in to oversee some of these systems and the camps and whatnot, is there a process that we're using to vet to make sure we are getting the ones who produce? Because I know there's some that do, they figured it out. They do a very good job of overseeing camps, rest stops, whatever they are. They seem to be very effective. And there's others who are less so, but still being paid. Is there a way to try and make sure we're getting the groups that have a track record of success?
I'll jump. Oh, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, so Councilor Grove, there absolutely is a strategy for that. We look at the outcomes that providers are producing, and that weighs into our decision making. The providers that we are looking at operating do have success, delivering people into increased stability, particularly when they're able to provide a full suite of services to the folks they're in.
Okay, thank you. And then at least at this point in the conversation, the last thing I wanted, it's more of making a point. We are certainly prepared to welcome some of these sites in West Eugene, but it sure seems like, all of them are either in West Eugene or North River Road, with the exception of one in Councilor Ye's ward. And I'm raising that issue because it gets raised to me constantly. I hear about this every day, pretty much all day, and it's the biggest thing I know on people's minds right now in West Eugene, at least as evidenced by what I hear. So I just want to raise that point. If there are any spaces that could be considered in other, balance this out a little bit, it certainly would be appreciated. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to comment a little bit. So since we started this process, one of those things that we've really focused on is that geographic distribution across the city, so that 1 or 2 or 3 parts of our community aren't more heavily impacted by the volume of people that are in some of the shelter sites. So we're actively looking, and if you have any, we'd really love to hear about them. We're working with brokers as well to identify.
Thank you. Claire, and then Mike.
Thanks, Mayor. I have quite a bit to say, so I might need a second round. And I guess I would have only characterized one of those things on the list as being in West Eugene. A whole cluster of them are about 5 blocks, 6, 7 blocks from me, which is, I wouldn't consider West Eugene. So so I've been hearing, first, I appreciate all the work staff has been doing on this. I think these 3 sites you're highlighting are a good start, a good place to start. I've been hearing from folks out on River Road who were very upset that the former LTD site there was being considered, and a couple of things around that. One, and so when I tried to write back and say, well, it's challenging to find suitable sites in the South Hills, for example, and I didn't articulate what suitable meant. And they said, well, is it suitable to put a site near a high school? And that wasn't on your list of criteria, right? You were looking for land that was flat, land that was available, land that was near transit as the first, one of the first screenings. And now there'll be additional screening on the sites. They were also upset that no one had reached out to neighbors about it. And I just want folks to know that because you are taking a list and honing it down, you might be bringing sites forward that we as a council would say, no, don't do that one. And if you've spent, 30 hours of staff time speaking to all the neighbors nearby and then we don't use it, then we're actually wasting our resources. And so it's not till you get to this place where you're bringing us these 3 choices that you would then do that much more robust outreach. And I just want to, I'm not aware of any of the nonprofits running our current rest stops who are not doing a good job. Community supported shelters and Nightingale, I believe, have had a very good track record of maintaining the sites as well-run, safe sites, both for the residents and the neighbors. And they have little to no impact on nearby neighbors. And in fact, some of those neighbors has found a decrease in vandalism, a decrease in illicit camps, because we discourage illicit camps near our managed sites. And they've got a good track record with supporting residents in moving out of the temporary shelter sites and into permanent housing. And as Councilor Ye said at our Monday meeting when we were voting on the parking ordinance change, this is part of many things we are doing to try and address this current crisis with our unhoused population. We're also working with our state legislators to find funding for more supportive and affordable housing and shelter options. So these aren't a long-term solution. They are part of an emergency solution right now. And I would like a second round, please.
Okay, Mike and then Matt.
Thank you all for the report, and thank you, Mayor. Christy, you said a couple of things that caught my attention, and I just wanted to, I'm not trying to pick on you, I'm just gonna ask some questions. Number one, you said that we know that the need is greater than our ability to serve it. Once we have all these new sites complete, it will still be bigger. Is that correct? Did I hear you right?
I think my comment was in the context of the staff responding to a lot of areas of concern. And so have a group of staff that's limited right now, and to respond to all of those things. Once we establish the sanctioned camps, we believe it actually will free up staff capacity to serve more of those urgent needs that come up on a day-to-day basis. But that's really what I was referring to, is that there's a lot of need right now because the problem is so distributed. People are sleeping in cars and RVs, temporary areas, and in definitely unsanctioned spots. And so what we're hoping is by creating these larger safe sites that we'll be able to do a better job of responding to the areas that are of concern, whether it's a public health issue, legal behavior. I don't know if that helps, but.
My time kept running too. It says 1:40 now, and I used about 10 seconds there. So if you could restore that or another minute or two to it, that'd be great. The context of my question, Christy, was really more about capacity to serve people who are in need of a place to sleep. Do we, and how that's calculated. And it's important in context of the Boise decision. How close are we to being able to offer alternatives to anyone who we would seek to enforce our illegal camping statutes on?
I think that, what we're doing is our best right now with the information that we have and the data points that we have. As I reported, there are, 2,400 people a month that are seeking out services that are identifying as unhoused. And so
data, excuse me, I apologize.
Lane County, their HMIS system that the providers report into for people accessing services. And so, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I apologize. No, because I'm trying to make a more specific point here. So if there are 2,400 that are in need of a place to sleep and we can't enforce because we don't have 2,400 places for those folks to go, as I understand it. And yet, did I hear you say that of what we have at the moment, there are still 2 or 3 places unfilled?
There are 2 to 5 on average a night at dusk to dawn. And so we want to make sure that we're utilizing that capacity that's available. As COVID guideline restrictions lift, the dusk to dawn, for example, will be developing plans around increasing their capacity. Our capacity used to be a lot higher than it is today. Right now, I think the maximum capacity is around 125 there, and it was more around 200. We cut that back quite a bit during COVID. And so we'll add that capacity back into the system. We will maintain our existing sites that we have, the microsites and the rest stops. And remember, it's always important, I think, to point out is that the intention of our temporary sites, whether it's rest stops, microsites, things like that, is that people don't stay in that same space forever, that we're really helping them navigate through the system to different levels of shelter, whether it be affordable housing, permanent supportive housing. And so we have to think of it as a system-wide capacity situation. And so when we talk about 2,400 people, some of those people may be eligible for some type of voucher that gets them into a different aspect of the system. But what we're trying to do is create that emergency housing to the greatest extent possible to help support those folks. I know that doesn't probably completely answer your question, but
It does, but where I'm driving to is, it seems to me like, as I have said all along, we're creating a lot of opportunities for people to take advantage of, and that's good. But we're also unwilling to be very specific about the behavior we will not tolerate anymore. And we have a set of rules for the places where there is an opportunity to go that would make a lot of folks, if it's just up to them, decide not to use them. And my biggest question was going to be, what if we create all 5 of these new sites and no one wants to use them because they can't do drugs there? For me, I would like us, as Councilor Groves mentioned, to have a more robust strategy once we have more options in place. And the options are great. I'm all in favor of us creating more options. That's fine. I don't think we will have a successful effort until we have a strategy that deals more specifically with unsanctioned camps and the expectation of behavior, and how we will deal with illegal camping better, and how we will do a better job with enforcement. That's our biggest problem right now. And creating the new options is great, but it has to be matched with what we won't tolerate people doing at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, staff. And while I've got the virtual dais, thank you to the service providers who and our for-profit community who have come to the table to find the perfect locations. A couple of questions about ensuring that the business community and the neighborhood around the neighborhood associations, in particular around the proposed sites, have full buy-in. I have a question about that. I also want to highlight the fact that the 34th and Hilliard, the Nightingale rest stop here in South Eugene, was among one of the first rest stops. And I check in regularly with the Nightingale team. They're asking for doubled space for that rest stop location right across the street. And it's been celebrated and welcomed by the community here in South Eugene. On that note, in my check-ins, it's come to my attention that throughout our community, in these emergency respite sites, that there may need to be a need for diversity awareness or cultural competency training for some of the volunteers who provide assistance if it's a self-policing kind of model. Is there a plan in place, Christy, that would allow for our service providers and or especially volunteers, whether they're unhoused volunteers who are kind of self-policing these sites, to receive some training the way staff gets trained? We get staff gets a belonging training at the community college. There's a cultural competence, diversity training. What sort of awareness training or even basic first aid, what sort of trainings are available for folks who are going to be volunteering their time to help staff these sites?
I love that question, and I love it for a lot of reasons. One is that as we continue to support community and understanding more about having diversity awareness and cultural awareness, I think that we can be a leader in that. My recommendation, as I'm looking at Peter on the screen right now, is let's see how we can weave that into the work that we're doing to make sure that our contracts commit to supporting that effort and making sure that we're having people that are well trained up. Peter might be able to address some of the other trainings that the providers and the volunteers receive. I do know that one of the things that we also have is a reciprocal agreement with some of our providers who provide us training and come out and do work with our teams, which is really, really valued. So, but I appreciate you bringing it up. And I don't know if Peter, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the standard training that our providers, the providers that we contract with, deliver to their staff are, obviously first aid, CPR, motivational interviewing, trauma-informed care, conflict resolution, specific stuff related to the homeless management information system. So there are a variety of training staff get. We don't contract with, we don't ask volunteers to run locations. And so if there are volunteers operating in sites, that would be organized by the provider. And, we would anticipate, or we would expect that they provide a level of training that meets the needs of the folks in the locations they're supervising. We do have grievance procedures. So if folks feel like they're being treated unfairly, there's a mechanism for that information to get to us. And for sure, we would act quickly were we to discover anything like that. And I love your idea. I think the more we can play a role in supporting non-traditional folks getting involved in this effort, the better our entire community's capacity is to respond to this challenge.
I appreciate that, Peter. Thank you. And thank you, Christy. Our park ambassadors once expressed to me that they're de-escalation ninjas, and I'd love to see an army of de-escalation ninjas throughout our safe sleep sites. I believe Councillor Sarette put in chat a clarification that Nightingale on 34th and Hilliard was the 4th rest stop. So we were among the first. I hope I didn't misspeak. But I'm proud of, as are a great many neighbors here in South Eugene, of that Nightingale rest stop. And I've mentioned that I would publicly advocate for expanding that rest stop across the street if that's a possibility.
Okay, thank you all. Claire, did you still need a second round?
Yes, please. I can be very brief.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so just a few thank yous. Thank you, Councillor Keating. That's excellent to hear your neighborhood advocating to expand the rest stop there. That's really important. And then I really want to appreciate the support of the Whitaker Community Council for the sites in Whitaker, even while they ask us to recognize the disproportionate impact the neighborhood has in terms of locating social services, other rest stops, and the use of Washington Jefferson Park as a shelter-in-place camping. I just want to note that Trainson does not have an active neighborhood association. So I really want to encourage staff to partner with Square One Villages to ensure that the outreach in that neighborhood is especially robust. It is one of our poorest neighborhoods in the city and really lacks a strong voice for itself right now. And then I just wanted to agree to some degree with Councillor Clark's concerns about enforcement. I have told staff, I've told Matt and Christy that once these sites are set up, my constituents in Whitaker want their park back. They don't want people to continue to camp there. And so we are really going to be relying on staff to figure out how that happens. So thanks, Mayor, for letting me finish.
Yes, thank you all. It's a great step forward under very trying conditions and never quite enough resources and never moving quite fast enough. But this is really very promising. We really appreciate how much has gone into bringing us to this point. and look forward to hearing, even more progress in another month. So thank you all very much. And with that, we are adjourned.